All right, so welcome to our deep dive. All about getting out of your comfort zone, right? Well, we're going to explore just that, using your source material from the Luma podcast in its segment, The Growth Zone.
And you know what's so interesting about the growth zone?
What's that?
They use humor and storytelling to make these concepts, these concepts that can be intimidating sometimes. They make them feel fun, actually.
Yeah.
And relatable. And it's hosted by Your Name.
Okay.
Who seems to have a real knack for finding those aha moments just in everyday life.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this thing. The first episode we're diving into starts with this story, and I think a lot of people listening can relate to this. The host walks into the wrong fitness class.
Oh, no.
Right? They were expecting like a Zen yoga session.
Right.
And they ended up in an intense kickboxing class.
Oh, my God.
Can you imagine? Like holding a yoga mat in a room full of people, getting ready to like roundhouse kick.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster and a funny story.
Totally. It's hilarious.
And they totally lean into the humor of it. But what I think is so interesting is they use this as a jumping off point to talk about resilience.
Okay.
It's like that Maya Angelou quote.
I love Maya Angelou.
You may encounter many defeats,
Yeah.
but you must not be defeated.
Right.
This mishap becomes like a metaphor for, how we encounter these unexpected challenges all the time in life.
It's so true. It's so clever how they weave that in. They even joke about like being defeated by a jump rope, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
But it's really about how we react to those things, right?
To get back up.
Do we just let them knock us down, or do we use it to like fuel us to get stronger?
Right, exactly. And the podcast really emphasizes that reframing these setbacks as learning opportunities is key to resilience.
That's true.
So instead of, dwelling on the embarrassment or frustration, they're choosing to find the humor in it, which I think is a really healthy approach.
Totally. And speaking of finding humor, they transition into their like growth tip of the day.
Okay.
And it's all about starting small.
Oh, I like that.
Right. They even quote the host's dad saying, "Why run when you can stroll stylishly?"
That's great. I love that.
I love that.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Why run? Stroll stylishly.
It's about
Take your time.
Yeah.
That's great.
And it actually connects to a lot of the research about habit formation.
Oh, yeah.
Like psychologists are finding that small, consistent actions are more likely to stick than trying to like overhaul your entire life at once.
Yeah, like those New Year's resolutions that we make, and then a week later we've given up.
So it's like instead of trying to meditate for an hour,
Yeah.
just take a deep breath for a minute.
Exactly. It's so much easier.
Well, it's way more doable.
It's those tiny changes that you make that gradually build up over time.
Totally.
That's where the strolling stylishly comes in.
Okay.
It's about finding that pace that works for you and not letting perfect be the enemy of good.
That's so true. And it's not just about individual habits.
Right.
They also talk about relationships and personal growth,
Mm-hmm.
which is something I'm really fascinated by.
It's a good one.
They actually compare relationships to plants.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like they need care and attention and communication to thrive.
Yeah.
So it's like, a plant's not going to flourish without water and sunlight.
Sure.
A relationship's not going to work if both people aren't putting in the effort.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And they tell this hilarious story about trying to have a conversation with their partner about communication.
Oh.
But it ends up being this like case of miscommunication.
Oh, the irony.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think we've all been there.
We've all been there.
Like it's so relatable.
Yeah, for sure.
And it ties in with this quote by Tony Robbins that they share.
Okay, what is it?
The quality of your life is the quality of your relationships.
Wow, that's powerful.
It's so true.
And it really does underscore how our personal growth is tied to our connection with others.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like this web of connections that's constantly shaping us and influencing us. And speaking of shaping and influencing, the Luma podcast ends on this note, that growth doesn't have to be perfect.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right.
I like that.
It's so important because so many of us get caught up in this idea that we have to be constantly striving for perfection.
Yeah.
And it can be really paralyzing.
It's intimidating.
It is. They emphasize embracing the process and celebrating those small wins and finding the humor in the missteps.
Yeah.
It's like giving yourself permission to be human.
It is. Like, we're not robots.
Right.
It's okay to not be perfect.
Exactly. We're allowed to be messy and make mistakes.
Absolutely.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've seen how this podcast uses humor to talk about these big topics like resilience and the importance of starting small.
Yeah.
And we've also seen how they connect personal growth to relationships,
It's all connected.
emphasizing the need for care and communication and understanding.
And they keep it light,
Right.
It's positive. It's encouraging. They remind us that it's not about being perfect.
It's not about being perfect. It's about embracing the process and learning along the way.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. It's like they're giving us permission to stumble and laugh at ourselves and keep moving forward even when things get tough.
Totally. And that's empowering.
It is. So what do you say we take a closer look at some of these key takeaways
Yeah.
and see what we can apply to our listeners?
Well, let's do it. Let's dive in. If we're thinking about what our listener can really take away from this episode of The Growth Zone, I think the most obvious one is the power of small steps, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to get overwhelmed by the idea of making these huge changes,
Right.
But this podcast reminds us that,
Yeah.
real progress often starts with these really tiny, manageable actions.
It's true. It's like building a muscle.
Yeah,
Like you wouldn't expect to bench press 200 pounds on your first day at the gym.
exactly.
No.
You got to start with weight that challenges you,
Yeah.
but doesn't completely crush you.
Right.
And just like with physical fitness, consistent effort over time leads to some pretty significant results.
It's so true.
And those small steps might seem insignificant at first,
Right.
but they create this ripple effect,
Yeah.
that gradually shapes our habits and behaviors.
And it's not just about the actions themselves, but like the mindset shift
Yeah.
that comes with focusing on those small wins.
Wait.
It's like giving yourself permission to
Yeah.
celebrate
Yes.
those little victories along the way,
For sure.
which is so motivating.
It is. Because, when we focus on what we're accomplishing, no matter how small, it helps to build momentum
For sure.
and keeps us moving forward.
Totally.
Even if, we stumble or face setbacks, we can look back at those small wins and be like, okay, but I'm making progress.
I did that.
Yeah.
And that's where the humor comes in.
Yes.
Like the growth zone doesn't shy away from the fact that, personal growth can be messy
Oh, yeah.
and hilarious sometimes. They embrace those awkward moments and they use humor to kind of disarm the fear of failure.
Absolutely. Humor is such a powerful tool for navigating challenges
It really is.
and reframing those, negative experiences.
Totally. When we can laugh at ourselves
Yeah.
and find the absurdity in our struggles,
It helps
it takes away some of the sting
for sure.
and it lets us approach personal growth with a lighter heart.
Totally.
It's like they're saying, hey, it's okay to trip up.
Yeah.
It's okay to not have all the answers.
Yeah.
Like as long as we're learning and growing from those experiences,
Totally.
we're on the right track.
You got it. And that ties back to their emphasis on self-compassion,
Yeah.
which is something that I think is often overlooked
Right.
in these conversations about personal development,
Good boy.
Like, we're all works in progress.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be kind to ourselves, especially when we make mistakes.
It's so important.
Yeah.
It's like giving ourselves permission to be human with all of our imperfections and quirks.
Yeah. And it's a good reminder,
It's a good reminder.
Hmm.
It's refreshing.
especially in a world that feels obsessed with achieving some unattainable ideal of perfection.
Right. Like it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
But it feels like that's what everyone's striving for.
Totally.
And it leads us to another takeaway from this episode,
What's that?
which is this interconnectedness of personal growth
Yes.
and relationships.
It's so important.
They make such a good point that we don't grow in isolation.
We don't.
Like our relationships play a huge role in shaping who we are
For sure.
and how we navigate the world.
The plant analogy is so good.
It's such a good analogy. Love that.
It's like a plant needs sunlight and water and nutrients to
survive. Right.
Our relationships need care and attention and communication.
Yes.
And what I think is interesting is they don't just talk about romantic relationships.
Right.
They touch on friendships, family connections.
Coworkers,
Yes.
mentors.
Yeah, all these different relationships.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's like they're acknowledging that every interaction
Yeah,
has the potential to contribute to our growth.
that's powerful.
It is. Even those like seemingly insignificant moments of connection can have a huge impact
It's true.
on our well-being.
And that brings us to the final thought-provoking question
Okay.
that the growth zone leaves us with.
Let's hear it.
What is one small action you can take today
Okay.
to nurture a relationship or cultivate personal growth?
I love that question. It's so simple, but it's so powerful.
It is. It makes you think.
It does. It challenges us to actually put these concepts into practice.
Totally.
You know.
Absolutely. It could be something as small as sending a text message to a friend.
Yeah.
Or giving a compliment to a coworker.
We're taking 5 minutes to reflect on your goals or
Yeah.
your intentions.
Maybe it's about setting a boundary in a relationship, or having a difficult conversation, or just choosing to be more present and attentive. Totally. And the key is to remember that even those little actions can have a ripple effect,
Right.
creating positive change in our lives and the lives of those around us.
That's what makes personal growth so exciting.
It is.
It's not about reaching some finish line.
Right.
It's about embracing the journey
It's about the journey.
and finding those small moments of growth and
Yes.
connection along the way.
Absolutely. And with that, I think we've successfully distilled the essence of this Growth Zone episode.
I think so.
You know,
Yeah.
we've uncovered some really valuable insights about resilience, the power of starting small,
Humor, self-compassion.
and the connection between our personal growth and our relationships.
So before we wrap things up, I want to hear what resonated most with you.
You know what really struck me was their emphasis on embracing the messiness of personal growth.
Yeah.
Like, they don't shy away from the fact that
It's not always pretty.
it's not always pretty.
It's not linear.
Yeah, and there will be bumps,
It's going to be messy.
you know?
Yeah.
It's like giving us permission to let go of the need for perfection
Absolutely.
and embrace the beauty of the journey, even with all its imperfections.
That's true. And I think that's really powerful for our listener, too.
It is.
Because sometimes we get so caught up in striving for some idealized version of ourselves
Right.
that we forget to appreciate the progress we're making, even if it's not obvious.
Right. Or Instagram worthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's about celebrating those small wins,
Yeah.
learning from setbacks,
Totally.
and finding the humor in the whole process.
And recognizing that personal growth is not a solo endeavor.
It's not.
It's about nurturing connections
Yeah.
with others, seeking support when we need it,
Asking for help.
giving support when we can,
Yeah,
you know?
it's true. Because ultimately, our growth is intertwined with the growth of those we love and care about.
So true. That's a good note to end on.
It is a good note to end on.
Yeah.
So to our listener, as you continue on your own personal growth journey,
Yeah.
remember to be kind to yourself. Celebrate your progress
Yes.
and never underestimate the power of those small steps.
So good. And if you're looking for more inspiration and a good laugh,
Yeah,
check out the Luma podcast.
and their Growth Zone segment.
It's so good.
It's a great resource for anyone who wants to approach personal development with a sense of humor, curiosity,
Yeah.
willingness to embrace the messiness of it all.
Totally.
Okay, so we've reached the end of our deep dive into the Growth Zone.
We have
Thank you for joining us on this
of
journey.
exploration and inspiration.
We hope you gained some valuable insights
We do.
and are feeling motivated to continue growing and evolving in ways that feel authentic and meaningful to you.
Yeah. Keep going.
Until next time,
Yeah.
keep seeking
Keep discovering.
and keep diving deep.
Get into the things that matter.
See you on the next deep dive.
You know, it's funny. We talk about personal growth as this big, huge thing.
Yeah.
But really, it's all about these like small, everyday choices that we make.
It's true. It's like, how do you eat an elephant?
Right.
One bite at a time. Exactly. And I think the Growth Zone does a really good job of breaking down those bites
Yeah.
into manageable pieces
Right.
so it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
It feels more accessible.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
It's not about achieving some massive transformation overnight.
No, it's a process.
It's about those little intentional choices
Yeah.
that over time get us closer to the people we want to be.
It's those little things that we do consistently
Right.
that make the biggest difference.
And sometimes those choices are about adding something new,
Okay.
like starting a meditation practice or learning a new skill or like reconnecting with someone.
Yeah.
But other times it's about letting go,
What do you mean?
like letting go of old habits or limiting beliefs
Right.
or even relationships that aren't serving us anymore.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you have to let go.
It's about creating that space for growth,
I like that.
both internally and externally.
That's a good point. It's not just about adding more to our plates.
Yeah.
It's also about decluttering and simplifying.
Yeah, getting rid of the things that aren't serving us.
Exactly. Making room for what matters.
It's about finding that balance between striving for progress, but also embracing where we are right now.
Yes. Be present.
Be present and remembering that the journey is just as important as the destination.
So true.
So I think with that, we've come full circle in our deep dive of the Growth Zone.
I think we have. We covered a lot.
We talked about resilience and the importance of starting small,
Humor, self-compassion,
the connection between personal growth and relationships.
all the good stuff.
And, we also uncovered some, I think, really actionable insights
Yeah.
and questions to kind of guide our listener on their own path.
Your own unique journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
Personal growth. It's an ongoing journey.
It is.
It's not a destination.
Nope.
So embrace the process.
Yes.
Celebrate your progress.
For sure.
And never stop learning and evolving.
And if you're feeling lost or discouraged, remember Maya Angelou. You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated.
Such a good quote.
It's so good.
So keep striving, keep growing, and keep finding the humor and the joy in the beautiful messiness of it all.
Love that.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Into the world of personal growth.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
We do.
Until next time.
Keep seeking, keep discovering, and keep diving deep into the things that matter most to you.
See you on next deep dive.